How good was Arcane though?
Sp4zie, what did you think about Arcane? Did you like it? Sp4zie, I watched something and I must know what you think about it, Sp4zie.
All right, I have a couple of minutes here before we dive into the next game. So let's talk about it. Man, it was good, wasn't it, chat? Oh, it was so good. No spoilers. It'll be a spoiler-free one. Although, if you want to be completely safe, as in, like, I don't even want to know which characters are in the series, you better leave and come back in about 10 minutes. I will try and keep it as spoiler-free as I can. Your own responsibility. Man, it was so good, wasn't it? Oh, man, I'm so happy that it was so good as well. Oh, I totally did not expect it to be that good. I totally did not expect it, but it was so good. First and foremost, let me just say that it's so smart that it did an origin story out of this. Because, like, you know it's just gonna work, you know? I don't know about you guys, but for me, you know, the best superhero movies are the origin story movies. I don't care much about the fourth movie that comes out. It's like, oh, now he has a new suit. And I'm like, I don't care. But, you know, if you tell me how it all came to be and how they go from like this zero to hero, I love it. You know, origin stories are sick. And I'm so glad they went with that, and it's really smart. Instead of creating this power fantasy sort of like, oh, here comes that character that you've played so much and look at them busting out the moves left, right, and center. No, it's just kind of, here's how it started. Really smart. Loved it. Amazing job on the world building in this one. So Riot has been trying so hard trying their absolutely best to try and build a world around all of these characters that people care about. It's such an interesting situation they're in, where it's like, we have all these characters with almost no coherency, and people love them. We need to make a story out of it. And they've been trying with these sort of like things they've been posting on their website, and these maps and these interactive things, and the champion releases and the lore and stuff. And I just haven't cared, chat. I just haven't cared. Have you cared? I bet a lot of people have cared. I'm kind of like Rammus. Okay. I'm just sitting here like, yeah, right. Piltover is a city. Noxious is some sort of region. Okay. I don't care. But in this one, I cared a lot. I cared so much. This sort of like world that they've created here is so intriguing. It probably boils down to like the art style and a little bit of the things I want to talk about as well. But just the overall world, even though it's just like a small part of the League universe, it's really freaking interesting. It really grabbed me. It really did. And throughout this little talk, I'm gonna fall back a lot upon the fact that I also watched this with my girlfriend, who has no prior League knowledge. So whenever I like something, being a League fan of many years, even though I don't play the game anymore, I often found myself asking the question, do I just enjoy this world, for instance, because I'm a League fan? It turns out I fell back on my girlfriend and heard, no, that it's a really interesting sort of city, and just all the characters in the city and the art style and everything, it just blends together. I find myself not very adequate at talking about like why this is an interesting world. It just is, and it worked, and I'm so happy it did. Moving on to another important point for me, it's so awesomely stylized, isn't it? It's so over the top in a sense, but it's still not over the top. You know, it's so flashy and it really pops out, but it's still not too much. I don't know how they did it. And they take a lot of creative freedom with like music and scenes and art styles, and then mash them, and it works. So many times when people try and be a little artsy-fartsy, you know, here's a scene and we're gonna paint it in a completely different way than the previous one. And you're just looking at that and you go like, you're trying too much. But here it just works. Every single time I felt like it worked. When they pulled something creative out of the bag, and they did a lot, it just worked. And it was so cool. And, you know, a lot of the times, both me and my girlfriend found ourselves sitting there going like, oh, this looks really dope. Again, I don't really know how they did that, but they did. Moving on to the characters. The characters are just interesting and well written and not tropey. They're not tropey. They're interesting. They have depth, ambitions that you can relate to. They're emotional. Even the more flat characters have depth. And it's so important, and it's so cool that they got that. And it makes these series so enjoyable. And it's crucial, I think, for the people that are coming in and are not watching this because they play League. It is crucial that there's characters that are well written and well realized and have interesting narratives and storylines, and they just nailed it with it. They just nailed it. It's so cool. To prove my point, chat, I mean, can we just talk about the fact that they made Heimerdinger not ridiculous? They made this make sense. How incredible is that? I never thought I would see it, man. And while we're on the subject of just characters, how cool is Echo in these series? Echo has always been a kind of cool character for me. I've always enjoyed his kit and how he's kind of... he's just like up there in terms of champions for me. And he's supposed to be realized in a cool way in these series. And he totally is. He's so freaking cool, man. How did they pull that off? I don't know. This is all impressive. I don't know if it's been talked about a lot by other streamers and YouTubers, but the intersectionality, the representation of like gender and, skin color, it's just really nice to see that this is something that I can show to my friends and proudly go, this will tell another story from a company that is a gaming company than the one you've seen in the press. The tropey sexualization of women or bulky men in big armor. This will tell a different story, and not in a forced way, not in that way that's like, oh, everything is the opposite town. No, it just works. And that again, I think is because the characters work. The characters have depth and they work, which is why it's so nice. And that just feels really good for me. It feels really good for me to be able to point to something and like recommend it to a friend who might not even be a gamer and go, look, this is based off of gaming. This is like a gaming thing. It makes me feel proud, actually, which is really cool. Let me talk a little bit about what my girlfriend thought, because she, again, doesn't have any League knowledge, and she watched the whole series with me. She, like I said, mentioned that, wow, this is really nicely animated. She has a bit of experience with movie making, and she brought up an interesting point, which is like the animation is very cinematography in mind, like the way the pans and everything, it's like they shot a movie, which is really cool, and makes it feel like, even though it's like stylized and in some way over the top, even though it's not, it feels like you kind of forget that you're watching an animation. And that, I guess, also speaks to its what's the word I'm looking for? The immersiveness, I guess. She said some little cool tidbits that I really enjoyed. She was like, I really like their outfits and how they're different in different scenes. So like characters switched clothing, and she also talked about the fact that, and this again probably comes back to like proper and successful world building, when they panned in a bar and everyone were rocking sort of their different outfits and gems and different like, it made sense and it was all interesting. Do you know that feeling when there's in a sci-fi movie and the classic bar scene and there's just like, look at all the aliens that exists, and it's kind of like, yeah, I'm a nerd, I kind of like it. Yeah, it's cool that there's a tentacle monster with like feet for hands, and then there's a guy who's like an elephant, but he's also a squid. That's fun. But here, when the pan happened and the expose of like the wide range of characters that are in this city happened, it made sense, and it made you feel like you wanted to know that guy's story and that guy's story and that gal's story. You wanted to know each and every one of the character's story that it just panned over, which is really cool. My girlfriend also said that this is just good storytelling. It's just good storytelling, and I'm like, hell yeah, it is. That's nice. What else did she say? I could tell that when I was watching this with my girlfriend that they put just the right amount of like fan service in there. There was not that much fan service, other than the fact that you're telling a story about champions that people love and care about. But there are small little gems here and there. But when you think about like, a video game animated series, you're thinking about, I want to see my champion kick ass, and I want to see highly animated shots of something that is just a top-down video game. That's what I want. Give it to me. And Riot Games just like, nope. There's plenty of action, there's plenty of fighting, but it isn't that fan servicey sort of like thing. It's just action that makes sense. It's not this sort of like, let's give all the gamers what they want. And turns out I didn't need it. When they put proper and just good, makes sense action in there, I didn't need any like fan service like that. There was like one scene in the entire season when my girlfriend went, now you can tell it's a video game that is based off of. There was one scene, one, and I think that speaks to its brilliance. I think that's where a lot of video games based stuff goes wrong, and it's so cool that they took that risk. Which one? How do I talk about that bit without spoiling anything? It is the one with Sp4zie. I think you'll know which one. I think like my one negative thing that I have to say about this, I only have one. I searched far and wide and I only have one. It is that I feel like this suffered from something that I personally have a little bit of a hard time with it, with just modern TV, which is like there wasn't that much of an end. Most of the story threads are still open and it kind of ends with nothing really being resolved in a sense, you know, which some people will love because we want more. And I agree, I want more, so it's fine. But I tend to really appreciate when they create something that is just this. It's just this. Here it is. Like, if there is another season, cool, but that doesn't need to be. Here it is. I think, for instance, what was that robot series called? You know, that Wild West sort of like humans' future came in and then they go to this world where there are robot AI and then the AI gets sentient and then Wall-E. It's not Westworld, thank you. Who said Wall-E? Ban the guy who said Wall-E. Westworld did that. It was beautiful. First season, I loved it. Didn't need a second season. There were things teased at the end of the last episode that was really cool and was just kind of like a wink and kind of like, you know what I mean though? And you're like, I would like to see that, but I don't have to. I don't have to because it has a nice ending. And I really love that. But this is just a personal preference. And yes, season 2 is confirmed in the works. We'll get it. So it's fine. But I kind of felt that when it ended. I was like, oh man, I kind of don't like when there's like not that much of a... I want things to be tied together, I guess. My final thoughts. Thank you, Riot, for making this. Like, thank you so much. Partly because I thoroughly enjoyed it and had a nice experience watching it with my girlfriend. But also, thank you so much for creating something that I can like show to any of my friends and go like, this is legit, you gotta watch this. And it's based off of something that I love. It's based off of a video game that I love, even though I don't play it anymore. We don't have to say it every time, chat. I know I don't play it, okay? I can just show it to a friend and know that it holds up and it's something that they would love. And I can be, like I said in the previous talk, I can be proud to show it. That's kind of cool. So thank you so much for making this. It was ridiculously good. I'm hyped for season 2. And also, anybody else extremely hyped for the MMO now? I'm extremely hyped for the MMO now. Those...